Hello everyone, it is MrCrayfish and today I am once again creating your mod ideas in Minecraft. And before we do start, I just want to thank you guys so much for the support on the first video. I didn't expect it to blow up like it did, so welcome all the new subscribers to my channel. Now if you haven't seen the first video, I highly suggest you go watch that first. I've also got a playlist now which contains all these videos, so if you want to find more of these I create your mod ideas videos, you can find them in that playlist. So over a week ago now, I asked you guys on Twitter if we could have a very simple mod created for Minecraft, what would it be? And you guys went absolutely ham on the responses. I think we had over 200 replies and it was really difficult to pick, but 3 ideas really stood out to me and I felt like I could create something really amazing with these ideas. Now again, if you guys aren't following me on Twitter, you need to, because that is where I ask you guys for mod ideas, so you can find the link in the description below. But I think we are ready to start today's video. So the first mod idea I really liked comes from a user called Toasty, and they said backpacks you can open without having to place them. Now some of you might know, but if you don't, there are actually already lots of backpack mods out there, but I feel like none of them have really done it justice. I feel like none of them really fit into the vanilla game. So let's get started now. I'm not going to explain the code, otherwise we would be here all day, and I'm sure a lot of you guys don't really know too much about this, but what I am actually doing is I'm trying to expand the player's inventory. I want to add a brand new slot, just kind of like the offhand slot, but this one would be specifically for backpacks. The idea I had is when you press B on your keyboard, it would basically open up a new inventory which is accessing that backpack in your inventory slot. Now I was certain, just because the game was running, that I had successfully patched the player's inventory and expanded it. But of course, I once again bamboozled myself, and this mod was about to get 10 times more complicated. But I wasn't going to let that get me down, so I headed straight back into the code, typed a few lines of code, if not 100 lines of code, and finally I had something that was working. Yo, there it is. There it is, guys. The backpack slot. Alright, so everything is working so far. Oh! That kind of looks cool. What the heck? Now obviously it wasn't finished, but after creating a new backpack icon and then making it actually render a slot, it was actually looking pretty decent. Alright, we should now have an icon in the inventory. There it is! That looks beautiful. Fits in well, I think. Now, you're not a true programmer unless you're programming late into the night. It was currently 1 AM in the morning, and the next stage of this mod was to create a backpack model, because I wanted there to be a backpack rendering on the player when there is a backpack in the backpack slot. How many times did I say backpack? Boom! There it is. We now have a backpack rendering on our player. Now it's not going to always render like that. Obviously it will only render if you have a backpack. So now it was time to actually create the backpack item, and then depending whether or not that item was in the backpack slot would determine if the model should render or not. Okay, so when I put the item into the backpack slot, as you can see, it is now rendering the model. When I take it off, it is now gone. So that is working so far, but we have a slight problem. This thing needed some textures. Now, I'm actually not really that good at textures, and I honestly surprised myself. It was 2 AM, and I actually created a texture I really liked. Now, if you haven't noticed, I'm going for a leather theme with the backpack. And as well, I've decided to go against creating a 3D model because I don't feel like that fits into the theme of Minecraft. If you think about armor, that doesn't have a 3D model, so why should the backpack? By this stage, this mod was probably the biggest mod I've created so far for this series, and the next thing I did was I added a crafting recipe, and it's something you guys would all be familiar with, but basically it is leather placed in the same arrangement that you would create a normal chest. Now we are reaching the final stages of this mod. There were 2 more things I needed to do before this mod was complete. The first one was to make it when we press the key B on our keyboard, it is going to open up the backpack inventory so we can actually store some items. And then the last one is what makes this backpack so special, and it is why I think this mod really needs to be in vanilla Minecraft. So when you actually die with the backpack on, you actually keep the backpack and its contents. And boom! Just like that, the mod is now complete. Let's check it out. So by pressing B, we can now open up the backpack, and then to close it, we press B again. When we die with the backpack on, we will actually keep the backpack. So when I respawn here, as you can see, I still have the backpack, and we still have our diamonds inside. And just like armor, you can equip it by right-clicking it. So that is going to wrap up the first mod. Thank you again to Toasty for suggesting this idea. This was so fun to create this mod, but it's time to move on to the next one. So the next mod idea I really liked comes from a user called Alibium, and they suggested place milk just like water and lava. I thought this was such a simple and fun mod, you know, I couldn't resist not creating it because, you know, there's milk in the game, but you've never really been able to place it down like water and lava. Like, it would be cool to see a milk fountain. Let's get started. So the first stage of this mod was to simply add in the milk fluid, so I could actually place it down in the world, and then it would kind of like, you know, just like water, it would spread out. And just after a short while, the code was ready for its first test. Something seems to be off here. I'm not sure what it is, but something just doesn't look right. Alright, I don't know what it is. Can you guys spot it? Alright, there we go. That's a little bit better. No longer a missing texture, but now we actually have another issue. This thing doesn't have any physics! So the next stage was to fix this issue, but I also needed to make it so when you actually right click with the bucket of milk, it will actually place the milk down. Right now it's still trying to perform the drinking action. And success! We could now actually use the milk bucket to place the milk down, and then we could also right click with an empty bucket and pick the milk back up. Everything was going so well. We could now swim in the milk, and of course I had to create a pool for it. Fast forward, I fixed up a ton of bugs I encountered along the way. I also added a new particle, which is the milk splash, and that happens when you jump into the milk. Having all that said, the mod was now complete. So thank you to Alibium for suggesting this idea. You can now place milk down in your world. But it's time to move on to the next one, and this is the last one for the video. So the third and final mod idea comes from a user called Maxwell, and they said to add some new boot enchantments, and one of the ideas that they had was really interesting. It was stomping. Basically, if you were to jump down or fall onto a mob, the fall damage that you take is actually going to be redirected to the mobs around you, and there would be different types of levels. And this sounded really awesome because I felt like, you know, I could have used this so many times when I was playing Minecraft. I would love to be able to actually purposely jump off a ledge, and then, you know, when I actually land on the mob, it damages it, and then I can just finish it off, you know, with a sword. So this is a really cool idea. Let's get started. So this was actually a relatively simple mod to create. Now, believe it or not, I've actually never added enchantments to the game before, so this was actually a learning process for me. But what I was actually doing at this first stage is pretty much just adding the enchantment in and then also adding the behavior. So, you know, when the player actually takes damage, it needs to check if the player has some boots on it, and then if it has the stomping enchantment, and if it does, then I can go ahead and redirect the damage to mobs surrounding the player. Alright, first test, let's see how this goes. So I'm going to go ahead, grab out an anvil here, and let's place that down. Let's see if we can find the book. We should be able to find it here in the combat tab. Yep, alright, cool. Oh! What? How did that work? So this one survived, but this one over here, which is like 5 miles away, died. I'm a legendary programmer. Not really, but it was conclusive from this first test that some things needed to be fixed up. So I headed back into the code. As you can imagine, it was quite a simple fix, so I decided to withhold another test and move on to adding more features. The immersion for this enchantment just wasn't there yet. When you stomp on the ground, it's kind of like creating a local earthquake around your player, and I wanted the mobs surrounding you to kind of feel that earthquake. So what I did is I made them kind of fly up into the air a little bit, they get knocked back, and also there was actually some particles that are spawned from under the mob. Huh? What the heck? Where'd they go? Huh? Ah! Okay, maybe a little too much power. Alright, I fixed up the value. It should just bop them into the air now. That was pretty good, actually. I like that. It wasn't too high, it was just like a little bop. Next, I made the level of the enchantment respect the strength. So if you had level 1, it's going to be pretty weak, but if you had level 4, it's going to be strong. I also added a few additional improvements, and now the mod was complete. So the higher the stomping level, the stronger it will be. The boots will now take damage in order to balance out the enchantment. And finally, the mob will get knocked back based on the position of the player. So thank you again to Maxwell for the idea. I hope you enjoy this mod. But on that note, that is going to end off this video. That is going to wrap up this episode of creating your mod ideas. I want to thank you guys again for the support on the first episode, and I hope you guys love this one too. You can download all these mods, links are in the description. If you want to suggest an idea for the next video, make sure you guys follow me on Twitter, and then when it comes to that time, I will post out a tweet asking for mod ideas, and you can suggest them then. Now, if you guys don't want to miss out on the next episode, make sure you guys subscribe, turn on them bell notifications, and if you enjoyed this video today, hit that like button, and I'll catch you guys real soon. Bye!